Hello and welcome to Moose Meets, where I sit down with various protocols to explore their innovations and what sets them apart. And of course, we'll be digging for some exclusive alpha for you, so make sure to lean in and stay tuned to ensure you don't miss a thing. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Moose Meets. Today we have PSTAKE Finance with me, and I have Mikhil here with me. Hey man, how are you doing?
Hey Moose, doing good. How are you?
Good. Excited to hear about Bitcoin and liquid staking. So let's kick it off maybe with a bit of your background, and then maybe you can introduce to us what PSTAKE Finance is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am Mikhil, and I'm the co-founder of PSTAKE. I've been working on PSTAKE for more than 4.5 years now, slightly almost around 5 years now. So I've been working primarily in the Cosmos ecosystem. So I'm an engineer by background, studied engineering at the University of Mumbai, spent a lot of time in Bangalore after engineering, like every engineer in India does. Bangalore is kind of like the tech hub for Asia, not just India, I would say. So spent quite a bit of time in Bangalore. That's where I met my co-founder at an event, and then we started working on. So I actually got excited about the space because of Ethereum, to be honest. Like although I'm now working on things around Bitcoin, but what got me super excited was Ethereum idea of smart contracts for open finance at the time, right? Like that was the term we used. There was no DeFi. It's just like open finance, and then that was replaced with the term DeFi in 2020, around DeFi summer. But yeah, I got excited about the programmability element of smart contracts, that you could actually like build anything in an automated manner where, you know, it's all like programmed. You can build finance, which is programmed into a contract, which is super exciting. But then my co-founder Tushar, he was very bullish on Cosmos, the tech stack, because he saw this, app chain thesis as something very interesting. I spent a lot of my time looking at the app chain thesis, got very excited about it. We started building things in Cosmos early on. So some of the people that we brought into the team were like very early Cosmos OGs. So yeah, I've spent like about 5 years building officially now in crypto, and I want to spend, at least a few more, years working on crypto. And, I'm super young, very energetic. I come from a sports background as well. So
Wow.
like university, I spend most of my time playing football, which is soccer for the American audience. But yeah,
Nice.
European football, I'd say. So yeah, very keen on sports in general, and crypto and product tech. So very excited to be here. Although I may sound like I'm not, I have a little bit of a cold, which makes me sound a little bit unenthusiastic at the moment. But I am just as excited to be building today as I was 5 years ago. That's a little bit about me.
Awesome. And let's hear about PSTAKE Finance, man. What have you been working on for the past 5 years, and what's coming up for the next
Yeah.
5 years, maybe?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think, like I said, we started building in Cosmos. So with P-Stake, the idea was we were very early to liquid staking, actually. So when we made a bet on Cosmos, there were like two POS chains. One was Cosmos, the other was Tezos. We haven't heard of Tezos in a while now, but Cosmos, is still something people know, care about. So when we bet on Cosmos, staking was like a very new thing. Obviously, people were talking about idea of Ethereum transitioning to POS and the merge. There were talks about it, but the merge was kind of a far-fetched dream at that time, right? People didn't even know if it's going to go through, because every time the merge would be 6 months away, and those 6 months would never come, right? So
Mm-hmm.
for us, making that early bet into staking gave us a lot of confidence to go into liquid staking, because we had a very deep understanding of the staking space, about proof of stake, and that made us realize the limitations of proof of stake. So before even Lido was a thing, or Lido was popular, or was live, we started working on liquid staking. But our bet was to do liquid staking for Atom and other Cosmos based assets. The thought process was very straightforward at the time, which is like, if you think from a first principles perspective, what would you need to succeed? You need like a big addressable market. You need to start focused and expand that focus over time and grow into something more general purpose. So the idea was to build like a general purpose LST protocol, which allows liquid staking for not just Atom, but any chain that uses the Cosmos SDK in the background. So that's where we came from. And we were the first Atom liquid staking protocol to go live back in early 21. This was before IBC in Cosmos was live, before Osmosis existed. There was no DeFi
Wow.
in Cosmos. So pretty early on. But then, because you're so early, you have to jump through tens and thousands of hoops to, to get your product out. So that's kind of how our journey looked like. We built the first iteration of the product in a very like complicated way, because again, in the absence of a DEX, you cannot have liquid staking. So we built our own bridge, which would be bridge with Ethereum and Cosmos, allowing us to issue the liquid stake token on the Ethereum network, Ethereum L1, and then use it in DeFi on the ETH chain. So we did all of that. We got integrated into Anchor in 2022. On Terra, we had about 55, 60 million TVL at that time. The protocol was doing decently well, growing at a very decent organic pace until Terra collapsed, and with it, the entire Cosmos ecosystem took a hit. Obviously, we had since been working on multiple other products as well. So STK BNB was one other product that we were working on, because Binance Labs invested in PSTAKE, and they wanted us to build liquid staking for BNB, which is something we got excited about. We built out that product. We also built out other liquid staking products, like liquid staking for Sol. We built out liquid staking for AVAX. We built out liquid staking for ETH. By the way, all of these products are ready and built out. We got them audited. We spent a lot of money and human resources on these products, but we never ended up launching them because of various reasons. But the most important being, like, you have to go focused at the beginning to get to a stage where you can expand to other chains, right? You want to reach a point of saturation in growth on one chain before you expand to other chains. We've kind of made the classical mistake that every startup at some point makes, right? Which is growing to, like, trying to do too many things at once. So we've made those different mistakes in the past, but we've learned from them. Recently, we've realized that Cosmos hasn't had much attention, much traction, not many users, and obviously, the tech is super, super good. It's probably one of the best tech stacks out there, but that doesn't make it, be all end all, right? Because you want to build for assets and chains that people care about. So we've been thinking about a pivot for a very long time, and then we started working closely with Babylon and their Bitcoin time stamping protocol, which they were, doing early last year, where they could help reduce unbonding periods for POS chains, specifically Cosmos chains to begin with. And we got excited about that, but later on they told us about their plans for BTC staking in a trustless manner, and that got us super excited. So, my co-founder Tushar, like I said, he thinks from a macro first perspective. He has beliefs where he feels like, oh, we're gonna have a world war, we're gonna have, a situation where, he has that fundamental belief in gold, and he's always been a gold first person in the past, and now he's, over the last like 8 years, 9 years, he's been a Bitcoin first person. So for him, he was very bullish on the fact that, oh, we should do something for Bitcoin. And when I spent my time looking at the Bitcoin ecosystem, I realized, okay, now we are finally headed in a direction where you could actually build something for Bitcoin. So far, you could say, oh, I'm building for Bitcoin, but you couldn't really build on the Bitcoin network. So now that you see those technological advances happening in Bitcoin, we've moved towards building for Bitcoin, not the chain, not L2s, primarily building for Bitcoin, the asset, because you want to do liquid staking, or you want to do anything for the asset. Like, if Atom itself is not a desirable asset, you're not going to do liquid staking for Atom, because sure, you could earn something with liquid staking your Atom, but that's not enough, right? You want to have faith and belief in Atom to begin with. So again, spent a lot of our time in looking at what to do next, and we've come to the conclusion that we want to do liquid staking for Bitcoin, because we've been in the staking space for such a long time. It only makes sense for us to do staking for the right asset. So that's where we are at today. We're working on BTC liquid staking on top of Babylon and potentially other products as well to generate yield on Bitcoin. That's what we do.
Gotcha. And like, what kind of made you guys want to focus on Bitcoin? Is there like Bitcoin yields are getting interesting, or like, is it the general Bitcoin ecosystem, like lots of activity and building on Bitcoin right now, that make you want to pivot to Bitcoin?
Actually, very good question. I would say what does not get me very excited is the Bitcoin ecosystem. I have to be very clear about that. It's like everybody says, oh, the Bitcoin ecosystem is great. I think what's good about the Bitcoin ecosystem today is that we see a change in the mindset of people, where people are like, okay, let's actually try doing something with Bitcoin, the network first, and then L2s. People have an open mind now compared to a few years ago, when if you said, oh, I want to change, something at the protocol level, at the network level for Bitcoin, people would be like, no way that's happening. Today, you see more openness to change, which is the most important thing from my perspective. But I think what really gets me excited is the fact that so far Bitcoin has not had any source of yield, which could be trustless. it was always about, oh, lend your Bitcoin here, collateralize your Bitcoin there, borrow against your Bitcoin, use WBTC, which is wrapped through BitGo. So there was no path to decentralized yields for Bitcoin. Today there is a path, and that is what gets me excited. So for the reason why we wanted to build for Bitcoin, one is obviously the faith and belief in the asset class itself, in the asset, because it is literally the hardest money out there. It is a store of value, but it's like gold, but so much better, right? We've heard so many people talk about it, but the reason Warren Buffett does not have gold in his portfolio is because gold has no yields. It's a negative carry asset. But the moment you have BTC, which can generate yield in a trustless manner for people, it becomes very exciting. So for us, the idea of, we've been all about yield since we started our journey, right? It's staking, liquid staking. Liquid staking is all about yields and liquidity. The moment you start seeing some scope for yields and Bitcoin in a trustless manner, you get excited and you want to do something around it. But there's going to be liquidity issues that come with staking. So that's why we wanted to build for Bitcoin. Also because the world we live in today, right? BTC is the only hedge. So most people don't care about an Atom, Sol, ETH even. Obviously, I came into the space looking at ETH and Sol, but I believe, half the world or more than half the world cares about Bitcoin. But a very small percentage of people care about these other smaller assets, right? So
That's
it's
true.
about building for the right asset. That's why we are building for Bitcoin.
Gotcha. All right, then maybe you can run us a bit more into how PSTAKE Finance works. PSTAKE Finance doing liquid staking for Bitcoin. Bring us through maybe the architecture and the tech behind it. How does it work, and what makes it unique from other Bitcoin staking yields?
Absolutely. Another very good question, Moose. So I think if you take a step back, maybe what would be important to understand here is how Bitcoin staking works to begin with. So unlike traditional POS staking, Bitcoin staking is very different. It's not about staking your Bitcoin to secure the Bitcoin network. Bitcoin still is a proof of work chain. It remains a proof of work chain where there are miners and not validators. Miners mine blocks instead of validating blocks, and they don't have to put up any stake on the network. All they have to do is have hash rate. So again, that's a key differentiation between Bitcoin staking, and thus we get to Bitcoin liquid staking. So what is Bitcoin staking? What does that even mean to begin with, right? So if I have to take a step back and explain Bitcoin staking, I would simply say that staking, before you understand Bitcoin staking, you need to have some understanding of staking. Why is staking even important? Staking is essentially a model to secure chains in an economic way, because you put your assets as collateral on the chain to participate in network consensus or to create blocks, right? So if you're sending so many transactions on the chain moves, you want to transfer some of your, let's say, ETH, from your wallet to somebody else's wallet, and this transaction needs to go into a block, and then there will be others doing transactions. All of these transactions go into one block. That block is full. There needs to be another block where transactions are filled in. These blocks, how do we know they have legit transactions? We know that by the process of validation or mining, right? Validators, proof of stake, essentially look at these different transactions. They order them in a block and say that, okay, these are the legit transactions. They don't create transactions out of thin air that don't exist. They put transactions that exist, and that's how blocks are created. But other validators in the network, they look at whether this block is legit or not. But what's the incentive for people to do the right thing? And when I say for people to do the right thing, what I mean is, why would a validator not include a transaction that does not exist to begin with? The validator could just create a transaction saying somebody sent their 1,000 ETH to the validator's address, but that's not the case, right? So how do you prevent that from happening? You prevent that from happening because of having some stake. So the validators need to have something at stake. What is that thing at stake? It's something of economic value. In most POS systems, it's the chain's native token. So in Ethereum, you have ETH at stake. So if the validator is doing something malicious, other validators are going to look at this validator's block and be like, okay, this transaction should not be in the block. Let's slash this validator. So a portion of this validator's ETH that this validator had staked will get burned from supply. So they lose money in doing that. That's the economic incentive, that disincentive that they have to avoid doing something malicious. Now the concept of BTC staking takes it one step further, which is, how do you put more economic value at stake? Because economic value could be in any form. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the form of the chain's native token itself. Why should the Ethereum blockchain be only secured by ETH when it can be secured by some other asset that has more economic value as well. So that's where we come with the concept of staking one asset to secure some other chain. This is what EigenLayer brought in with E3 staking, where you have your ETH staked on the Ethereum network, but you can use that ETH to secure, that staked ETH to secure other smaller chains and services in the world. BTC staking is similar to E3 staking, except that BTC is the most stable asset, has the most economic value of any asset in crypto ecosystem, crypto space. And then at the same time is also, one of the most robust assets. So BTC staking is essentially users bring their Bitcoin, they stake it to secure other chains and earn some rewards from these other proof of stake systems. What PSTAKE does is PSTAKE allows people to secure the right chains while maintaining liquidity, because BTC staking has the same limitations that normal POS staking has, because when you stake your asset, you have to lock it up. So when you stake your BTC, you have to lock it up and it won't be liquid. You earn some staking rewards for sure, but you can't do anything with your BTC anymore. So what PSTAKE does is PSTAKE functions as this layer which issues an LST, accepts BTC deposits, stakes it on behalf of the user, and earns rewards for users, converts those rewards into Bitcoin, because these rewards will be in different assets, right? If the chains being secured through the staked BTCs, let's say the Cosmos Hub, Osmosis, let's say the Babylon chain itself, all the rewards, staking rewards come in form of Atom, Osmo, Babylon tokens, which need to be converted into BTC. That is what PSTAKE does. It converts these rewards into BTC and sends it back to the user that can claim these staking rewards at any given point in time. I would say, first of all, to clarify one thing as well, which is in today's world, given where the tech for the Bitcoin network is at, there is very limited, capability for you to actually write complex smart contract logic or complex logic that would allow for contracts to do non-custodial liquid staking. Nobody can actually do non-custodial liquid staking in today's world. The best we can do is through threshold signing schemes, MPCs, multi-sigs. PSTAKE uses custodians to do this with an MPC solution. So we work with Kobo so we are onboarded on Kobo's MPC solution as one of their users, and we have an MPC wallet. One of the signers for this is Kobo, the other is PSTAKE, and then there's a third signer. People deposit their BTC into this custody solution, and within this custody solution, we do the staking. But the BTC never leaves the custody wallet. It remains with PSTAKE's product itself, where there are 3 different signers. So most BTC liquid staking solutions have very similar deposit and withdrawal logics. We have the same thing. What differentiates us, I would say, is the fact that we have a very strong understanding of the liquid staking space, of the staking space, and the Cosmos ecosystem, which is one of the main go-to-market strategies for Babylon, because Babylon is going to secure some Cosmos chains to begin with. Unlike EigenLayer, where newer services are being created, Babylon is going after a market that already exists. So the BTC that is staked by users are going to be used to secure chains like Cosmos Hub, Osmosis potentially, that's not confirmed yet, the Babylon chain potentially, Persistence, and some other chains. So what we do is we understand who are the validators who should receive delegations of the BTC, so that the user's BTC is secure and safe and they do not get slashed. So PSTAKE has this mechanism which we built out for our Atom liquid staking protocol, which is the same thing that we are going to import to this BTC liquid staking protocol, which is essentially a fully automated way of delegating your BTC to validators and not picking winners. Okay, let's take all the BTC that comes in with one particular validator or finality provider in Babylon. The product looks at on-chain parameters and performance of finality providers and validators and makes those delegations. So it's our expertise in the Cosmos ecosystem, our expertise in the liquid staking world that kind of differentiates us, I would say, because most other LSTs all look pretty much the same. There can be some differentiators in terms of where the LST is issued and how it is issued, but those are like minor details, I would say.
Right.
Sorry, that was a very long monologue.
No worries. Right. So would you say like PSTAKE finances a bit like Lido for Bitcoin?
Yeah, I would say you could compare it to Lido or EtherFi, whichever way you look at it. I would say more EtherFi because it has some restaking elements, right? Where it's BTC staking is very much like E3 staking, I would say, because it secures other chains and not the underlying Bitcoin network itself. So I would draw parallels with EtherFi in a way, but the reason we call it liquid staking and not liquid restaking is because there is no native staking. So this is the
Right.
first layer of staking in a way. Yeah.
Right. No, I was just thinking about Babylon staking.
Yeah. What
Would
about
that
Babel?
would that count as like the native staking protocol, and then you
Mm,
guys kind of like the restaking on top of that?
yeah.
Y-
So correct. So
Then,
Babylon could be
mhm.
considered as native staking. Babylon could be considered as eigenlayer because it allows people to secure other chains by depositing their BTC, and then we are building on top of Babylon, and thus more compared to EtherFi, I would say.
All right, all right. On that note, I recall seeing a tweet from you, comparing like it was like a very controversial tweet, comparing like LSTs and LRTs shared security landscape on ETH versus Bitcoin. So can we hear that from you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I didn't have my coffee at that time when I was studying, but no, my view is still pretty much the same. I think obviously not as extreme as saying, oh, Eigenlayer is not gonna win and they'll lose, but Babylon will win. That was what the tweet said. My view is still that Babylon has a much better go-to market than Eigenlayer has, because you have to look at the restaking landscape from a first principles perspective. How many people care about restaking their ETH versus how many people care about staking their BTC? Because so far, one, as you compare the two assets, ETH and BTC, obviously ETH has its own journey and it has some potential that is separate. BTC has its own journey and its own potential that is separate. The question is about yields, because people restake or stake their assets for yields. Now, ETH staking, there is native staking for ETH, which gives out a few, 2, 3, 4% staking rewards dependent on the network activity. Bitcoin has zero yields. There's zero staking rewards for Bitcoin. So if you hold BTC, you get nothing. But what Babylon introduces is some yields to BTC, which is a big step from zero. So anything from 0 to 2%, let's say even, is a big
Mm-hmm.
bump up. Two
Yep.
zero to 1.5% is a big bump up. But if you just natively stake your ETH or liquid stake your ETH on Ethereum on, let's say, 3% yields, and Eigenlayer introduces another 0.5% in yield. But the risk that you take to go from that 3% to 3.5% or 3% to 4% is exponentially bigger. It's not incremental in nature, because you take now Eigenlayer smart contract risks as well to increase your yield from for a few basis points, right? So that is one part of the problem, I believe, because ETH already, like, Eigenlayer has to give out very big yields to actually match out yields to actually compete with BTC yields through Babylon. Now, the other question is, where do these yields come from? So the yields come from two different sources. Primarily one source, which is the AVSS, or the actively validated services, or the consumers of these security from ETH, restaked ETH or staked BTC. Now, Eigenlayer's strategy for go-to-market was to come up with new services, which is EigenDA, and then AltLayer, or 20 other chains and services that come in and will borrow security from ETH. Now, the thing is,
Mm-hmm.
historically speaking, these chains are new, these services are new. How do they generate enough revenue to create enough staking rewards that can be shared with these stakers? That's a big question mark in my head. The way I see it happening is only through inflationary tokens, inflationary yield. But these chains or services that borrow security from Eigenlayer, they don't need inflation to begin with. If they just existed as smart contracts on Ethereum, right? They don't even need to like have any inflation, because they don't have a security budget. But now, the way they can give out any staking rewards to ETH stakers or ETH stakers is through inflating their supply, giving a portion of inflation to ETH stakers and Eigenlayer. With Babylon and BTC, what already happens is Babylon is going after an established market of players, which is the Cosmos chains to begin with as their GTM. So Cosmos has like 15% in staking rewards. Now, obviously, a lot of this comes from inflation. Don't get me wrong. It comes from inflation, but that inflation has a legit use case, which is the security budget for the Cosmos hub validators itself. So even if 10, let's assume, let's play around with numbers. If Babylon has $1 billion in TVL for BTC, stake BTC, $1 billion, probably too less, could have like much more, but I'm just being very conservative. Let's say $1 billion. Cosmos hub stake, inflation is, for simplicity, let's say 10%. If it's FDVs, $3 billion. I don't know what the latest numbers are, but if it's FDVs, $3 billion, that's $300 million worth of new tokens coming into supply. if the Cosmos Hub decides to share 10% of this inflation with BTC stakers, that's significantly high, right? That's $30 million in staking rewards going to BTC stakers. So on $1 billion worth of BTC stake, that's 3% yield coming from just Cosmos Hub itself. Because there's already inflation and people have, like token holders for Atom, have accepted that inflation as part of the natural process of Atom. So my point was that Babylon has a much better chance of giving out BTC yields compared to Eigenlayer giving out ETH yields to restakers, because these AVSs are new, have no revenue source, and when they introduce inflation, which they do not need because they are completely outsourcing the security to Eigenlayer, it will create more complexities and the token may take a hit, or there could be 20 things that happen. So it's purely like a GTM plus what token needs more yields in this moment. So it looks like Babylon is a much better play for me, at least. And obviously, I have a bias here, right? So I'm not going to deny that. That was the tweet.
Right, great points. Yeah, I was wondering about the yield, so happy that you brought that up. And maybe now we can move on to the risk. So, what are some of the risks for users to be aware of, when liquid staking with PSTAKE Finance?
Yeah, so the number one risk is you have a big trust assumption, not just with PSTAKE, with every liquid staking protocol for BTC. The biggest risk is that you don't custody your Bitcoin in today's context. So you will have to give up custody of your BTC. It moves into the control of the MPC participants or the threshold signature signing scheme participants. So in our case, is Kobo, which is a qualified custodian, has been live in Bitcoin ecosystem for many years now. A proven player, PSTAKE, which has been working on liquid staking for about 5 years now. And then there's CoinCover, which provides insurance to the BTC that is deposited into PSTAKE. So that is a big trust assumption. That is the number one trust assumption. Apart from that, general risks of liquid staking apply, which is, in the case of a slashing event, you may lose some BTC, but that risk applies even with general staking. So I would say the biggest risk is the trust assumption element. And that will change in the future because, like I said at the start of the discussion, moves BTC, the Bitcoin ecosystem is evolving and people are more open to change today. With the introduction of Opcat and BitVM, we could be in a place where you could actually build out fully non-custodial liquid staking solutions, which means you don't need to rely on custodians, or you don't need MPCs. You can actually have you can custody your Bitcoin yourself and liquid stake it. You have full control over it. PSTAKE or any other participant, any other LST protocol cannot do anything with it. So we're already looking into that and doing our research in preparation for Opcat and BitVM to go live. So yeah, I think up until then, this is one big trust assumption. Some other liquid staking protocols also issue their LST natively on BTC L2s, which adds another layer of trust assumption, because all these BTC L2s are essentially side chains which use bridges, and those bridges are again multi-party competition, MPC, TSS bridges. So again, few participants controlling the bridge. So there would be more trust assumptions. What we've done is we are going to issue the BTC LST, which we call YBTC. Y stands for yield. So YBTC will be issued on ETH-L1. And then you can take it from ETH-L1 to anywhere you want to take it, to any BTC L2, ETH-L2. But we don't want to enforce another layer of trust assumption. That is then based on your risk appetite as a user and what you would want to do. So yeah, that's how it all works.
All right, gotcha. And then the next one would be talking about the PSTAKE token itself. Do you want to go into the token utility, tokenomics, and I also understand that the PSTAKE token is actually live already.
Yeah, I think so. PSTAKE has been live since 2022. War first started actually. So the day Russia bombed Ukraine on 24th or I think Feb, that's when the token went live, and was not the best day for the token to go live, but I think it's a long journey for us. So yeah, the token is the governance token for the PSTAKE protocol. It allows people to, you can compare that token to other governance tokens in the ecosystem. What we are also working on, and this is something which is obviously governance dependent, right? So if PSTAKE governance chooses to approve this change in the PSTAKE token economics, what it would introduce is that PSTAKE tokens can be staked. PSTAKE is an ERC20 token. It can be staked on the Ethereum network to then allow these token holders to make certain decisions around how the BTC stake is distributed across finality providers on Babylon, or should PSTAKE introduce new strategies to generate yield on the BTC, right? All of it into Babylon, or should it, find other yield sources for BTC? So PSTAKE currently allows people to participate in governance and make decisions around the protocol, around economics of the protocol, how much fees should the protocol charge, how should we use the treasury for incentivizing, certain pools and certain traction, how do we go about all those things. This general strategy of the PSTAKE protocol. And then in the future would allow you to do a lot more specific things like, okay, how do we use the BTC that PSTAKE has, which yield sources to look for, where to look for these yields. So yeah, that's the utility of the PSTAKE token. I think the token's been trading for more than 2 years now. PSTAKE in the past raised capital from some of the heavyweights in the industry, and one of its largest investors is Binance Labs. Yeah, so we've been around for a while now and continuing to push.
Gotcha. And I saw that PSTAKE token is live on multiple chains, right? Do you want to share with us which chains they are?
Yeah, so PSTAKE is available on a lot of chains actually. I think it's available obviously on the ETH L1, is available on centralized exchanges, OKX, Bybit, KuCoin, Kraken, and a bunch of other exchanges, but also available on L2s on Ethereum like Blast and Base, potentially Optimism, Arbitrum in the near future. You can find the token on Uniswap on Ethereum, the L1 itself, and then also available in the Cosmos ecosystem. The idea is that as an enthusiast and as a participant of the protocol, the ecosystem, you should be able to acquire the token from any chain. You should not be restricted to using a particular chain. So the PSTAKE token goes into different places, and that's what we call it. Like, we call this thing PSTAKE everywhere. So PSTAKE should be available everywhere. So it is available on multiple chains, like you rightly highlighted, Moose.
Gotcha. Right. And what can we expect from PSTAKE in the coming months? I understand you guys are in testnet now. Like, will mainnet be soon, or what else is coming up for you guys?
Yeah, I think the biggest is the launch of our mainnet, which is expected this month in July. We are now, so we've been live on testnet for more than 2 weeks, I believe. We've had very decent traction, like 14,000 plus transactions, 13 plus SBTC, Signet BTC stake. By the way, Signet BTC is much harder to acquire than BTC itself. For testing, the team spent like a bunch of their time just trying to acquire Signet BTC, which is the testnet Bitcoin tokens. I wish there was a market like, how we had Go Early ETH markets back in the day, but unfortunately we don't. So yeah, the biggest next milestone for us would be the launch of our mainnet. We'd do it in a beta mainnet where we would still want to test out things on mainnet before we open it for public in a bigger way. So expecting to go live very soon with the V1 of the product, which accepts deposits and stakes it with Babylon. The very next phase would be issuance of the YBTC token on ETH L1. And then immediately after that would be the running of different strategies for staking BTC with the right finality providers on Babylon. So that's where we are at. And those would be like the most important milestones for us.
Gotcha. All right. And the last question I have for you, what does the end game look like for PSTAKE Finance?
It's a very tough question to answer because of how volatile the industry is and how fast moving it is, changes very rapidly. So it means we need to be agile and flexible in our approach. But at the same time, I think we've been very aligned with the idea of yields since the beginning of PSTAKE. PSTAKE has always been about yields, primarily through staking, because on-chain yields is what we care about. It is, as we want to be decentralized. We are a decentralized protocol. It's our objective is not to central, like, have no transparency, right? Being on chain allows people to see what's happening with their assets. So the end game would be to be a very big player in BTC yields, potentially the largest, and allow people to earn yields on their Bitcoin on chain through different mechanisms, not just through Babylon staking, but potentially through using their Bitcoin for various purposes, but all on chain, and be like one of the best yield producers for BTC. Yeah, that's our end game.
Awesome. Love that response. And with that, that is all the questions I have for you today. Before we go off, is there anything else that you want to touch on that we might have missed?
No, I think that should be it.
All right, then with that, we've come to the end of this episode, right? All the links for PSTAKE Finance and Mikhil will be down in the description box, so definitely do check them out. And of course, participate in their testnet and keep a lookout for the upcoming mainnet soon. and we will see you in the next episode. Thanks, Mikhil.
Thanks, Moose.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Moose Meets. I hope you enjoyed learning more about them as much as I did. Let me know which other projects you would like to learn more about in the comments down below. As usual, do remember to hit the thumbs up and subscribe to the pod. We will see you in the next episode.